Hi everyone, it's lovely to be here. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Marianne, Head of Programme at Bluecoat, and I'm zooming from home, but soon to be back in the building when we open in mid-May. And I'm really delighted to have Andrea Koo with us, who's a Liverpool artist, gardener, creative and beekeeper. And she's been our garden in residence, which was something initiated by us with the support of Liverpool City Council Without Walls programme. Because of all the lockdowns, we've not had a huge amount of gardening, but we've been making resources for children, which we'll show you later, which are these very beautiful bee bags that we've been using. But I should also say, for those of you who don't know Bluecoat, we're a city centre venue, but we actually have a courtyard garden. So we're one of the kind of few kind of green spaces in the centre of Liverpool. And we also have a history of public facing specialists having residencies. So we've had a philosopher in residence and a sociologist, as well as artists, of course. But Andrea is our latest resident. And I'm going to say hi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, no, thank you.
And thank you everyone who's watching at home. We are recording this and you can drop questions in a Q&A box, but if you prefer to use the chat, I'll keep an eye on that. And I do have some questions already having been sent in, a bit like Gardener's Question Time, but anyway. So Andrea, I just wanted to start by asking you about your background, and we're going to share images along the way, which Louis, who's invisible, will share for us. But having read out your sort of resume, artist, gardener, beekeeper, I just wonder if you could tell people about which came first and how they overlap. That would be amazing.
Yeah, sure. I don't know how to kind of say how if you are creative or, you know, what makes you creative, but I did a fine art degree, or sort of late 90s, early 2000s, and then loved it, absolutely loved it, the whole kind of free reign of what you could do on the course. And then I worked for about 8 or 9 years, and I ended up at a landscape contractors up in Halifax. And I met a lot of landscape architects with the job, and I just thought, you know, that sounds really interesting. So I kind of looked into it a bit more, and then I did a conversion course, which marries together your fine art and design skills with the new landscape architecture skills. So I did the conversion and a postgrad, and then for my MA thesis, I wrote about gardens in Liverpool 8 in Toxteth, which is where I live, and the value that gardens play in terms of linking with other green spaces, public green spaces like verges, street trees and parks. And it was a beekeeper called Barry that kind of said, you know, why didn't you learn about beekeeping? This was over 10 years ago, and I just thought that is the weirdest thing anyone could ever possibly say to me. And so I did, and I learned a lot about gardens and nature in the urban area through the eyes of bees. And that was, I think I completed my MA nearly 10 years ago. I've been beekeeping since. And a lot of my friends on the landscape architecture course, a lot of them are in kind of sort of higher sort of roles with urban designers and councils and kind of planners and things like that. And my sort of approach was really, you know, bottom-up approach to improving local areas, local landscapes, you know, through what we can do ourselves, rather than a top-down approach and things get trickled down, or, you know, they don't hit the masses. So I was one of the kind of key impacts of how to improve local landscapes is through beekeeping. So I've been teaching beekeeping for about 6 or 7 years now with Blackburn House. So I think I've taught about easily over 300 people over the last few years. And so just getting regular people, anyone really, because my aim is to teach anybody to kind of have a go at beekeeping and gardening, and to look through the eyes of bees and see what is it that nature wants, where can nature thrive, what do bees want more specifically, and how we can help them.
And that's really interesting, because in a sense, like a lot of people of a certain generation might have come to beekeeping because they've retired or they've got a garden, and it's often seemed like it's a very particular hobby or pastime, so it's less associated sometimes with cities. And I just wondered about that side of it, and also where all the hives are situated, particularly that you look after, because they are in some quite unexpected places.
Yeah, with beekeeping, it is, I mean, I did read about a typical demographic in the UK of, you know, a typical beekeeper that's been like this decades, centuries. And it's a very middle class kind of male hobby, pastime, if you're going to be, you know, make money out of it, a job out of it. And I just thought that, because when coming from Liverpool, and I know quite a few beekeepers in Liverpool as well, there's a lot of, they're mostly male as well. So I just thought, if you're going to think about the future, not just of beekeeping, but of looking after the environment, you've got to kind of work with younger people and children to kind of get them, you know, to kind of sow the seed, so to speak, for them to learn about it and to think, okay, well, this is the right way. We don't have to do a massive, you know, intervention. We can just start small and kind of build from that. So I mean, I go to a lot of bee conventions, and it is very much that demographic, quite a lot really, local ones and national bee conventions. So my kind of ethos really is to break it down, because it's the only way to go forward, to think about nature and beekeeping, is to offer that opportunity and give people who wouldn't necessarily have the chance or to learn about bees to have a go at beekeeping. So I teach a lot of young people with a scheme with Blackburn House. It's called BU, so it's teaching young people aged between 14 and 24 all over Liverpool. So I think I've taught maybe about 10 schools over Liverpool, colleges and universities. And these are just kind of, you know, regular kids in Liverpool who wouldn't necessarily have that opportunity to learn about bees. And also I've taught at a lot of SEN schools, which is specialist education schools. And I mean, for a lot of children and young people who don't work well in classroom settings, they want to, you know, outdoors and want practical activities, giving them that opportunity and seeing them thrive with something like that. You know, if they didn't have that opportunity, they wouldn't have, you know, got to know or, you know, done anything about it. But if they can learn about it, you can take on that learning and take it further. So I'm quite kind of proud really that I have taught a lot of young people, you know, beekeeping that they'd never know about really. And in terms of beehives, I've got 35 beehives all around kind of Liverpool City region. So they go as far up as Formby Library and Bootle Library. So they're the only UK public libraries to have beehives on site as well, because that was part of a scheme called Beehives and Bookworms. That was a lottery funded project a few years ago. And that was to kind of get people to use the library in a different way. So it's not just about books and hiring things and sitting in quiet. It's about going to the library to do beekeeping, because, you know, why not? And so I've got them all around on top of buildings in the city centre and parks, well, outside of parks, people's homes, Nest Botanic Gardens, I've got them there as well. And they are strategically placed because with the library ones, especially North Liverpool and then city centre and then all around the docks, because Liverpool is at high risk of pest and disease coming in. So it's a new angle to learn about bees through the different, you know, through pest and disease, because as I said, we are at high risk, and having those different kind of risks that will affect our honeybees. And Nest Botanic Gardens, just because purely they have hundreds and hundreds of species of loads of different things, and the pollen that comes in is kind of, I treat it as like an educational resource, because it's all different colours, and it's yeah, it's just kind of, there's so much of it that there's so many colours and different plants that you can learn about the different plants through the pollen and through beekeeping. So hopefully by the end of, sort of touch wood, by the end of this year, I'll have no more than 45, maybe 50 beehives, just as part of learning, really, and just keep teaching.
I guess they become like almost like a network of beehives, but how often do you have to check on them in terms of your pattern of like your week or your year even?
As soon as, the season starts, when you talk about a beekeeping season, it's that's when you start your checks, start doing your beekeeping. So last year we had good weather. Last year, all around lockdown was good weather. So that was like mid-end of March, as soon as lockdown hit. This year we've had some really odd weather, kind of especially in the last few days. So usually I would check every week from end of April till end of July sort of time, maybe early August, just weather dependent really. So it's quite a lot of checks and a lot of driving around to do for 35 beehives. But it's because I've got them in public spaces like the libraries. You have to kind of make sure or try and kind of reduce the risk of swarms, because swarms, if you see a swarm of bees, they're just all around a branch, for example, or anything, a bonnet of a car or fence, and it can frighten some people. So part of my teaching as well is, it's a natural process. Don't be frightened. It's fine. The bees aren't going to, come and get you or anything, but it can be quite scary. But it's quite a task to do. You've got to be committed to do beekeeping, and it's not kind of like get the bees, just leave them, do what they want. You do have to check them as well. They've got enough food. Like, for example, June gap, which is when spring flowers have died out, summer flowers haven't yet, not in bloom. So it's a bit kind of hit and miss when we have June gap now, because everything's a bit up in the air like this. But, making sure during that time there's enough food for the bees and they're healthy, there's, no sign of pest and disease. And just make sure the queen is there, she's laying eggs and everything is ticking over.
And because you've mentioned Liverpool being a place of high risk for bees and disease, what's happening generally in the bee population that is of concern, and then why would Liverpool be a place that might be at risk?
All port cities around the UK are at risk, but Liverpool more so, because we've got that huge dock, Peel Port is it called, and then other, Garston and other docks. So there's a lot of freight and cargo and things coming in that, we don't know what's in there. And we've had things like the Asian hornet, which is affected mostly down southeast, southwest. The nearest it's come to Liverpool is in Bury. It came through it was in a cauliflower that was brought over from, it's from the southeast, which was brought over from Europe. And it was an Asian hornet in a cauliflower at a market someone had bought. It's my apiaries. I've got 3 apiaries that are sentinel apiaries, and they're used by like a kind of a wing of DEFRA, where we have a bee inspector comes out, checks the hives 3 times a year, and takes samples of the kind of scrapings at the bottom of the beehive, and then just says, okay, well, you've only got this problem or you've not got this problem. So it's useful, because we're in such a dense urban area in cities, because people think beekeeping, countryside, rural areas, but get more diversity in plants in the city. So this sentinel apiary kind of relationship I've got with DEFRA and the bee inspectors, it's really important, because it's like the first line of defence for if anything was to happen. Then if it happened in my hive, beekeepers in the area would find out and kind of take precautions.
And just back to, we are getting some questions in, so I will come to some questions as we go. But just back, because obviously for a lay person, a swarm of bees, which is something you mentioned, could look quite frightening. And I do believe you get called out to deal with swarms, don't you? Sometimes.
Yeah.
What do you do as a specialist, and what would someone who's just spotted a swarm need to do, in a sense?
If it's better in the last kind of 10 years that councils and kind of, gatekeepers of housing associations, places like that, they've become more aware of what a swarm is and what honeybees do look like. Because to, like, someone who, when you think of bees, a lot of people just think bumblebee, black and yellow striped, big fluffy thing. That's a bee. But there's, your 3 types of bees in the picture here. That's what a honeybee looks like. But some people think it's a wasp. They think I've got a swarm of wasps, but wasps don't swarm. The only things that swarm are honeybees and locusts. But, in England, it'll just be honeybees. And I'm a registered swarm collector with the BBKA. And so that just means if someone thinks they've got a swarm in their garden or, wherever, they'll usually call the council, and the council will kind of get on the BBK website and go, okay, Andrea Koo, she's the nearest swarm collector. And then they'll phone me. I actually had a swarm call yesterday, but it wasn't honeybees. And so I kind of ask the person, what do they look like? And, how many are there? Whereabouts is it? And then if it is honeybees, I'll go out and collect them. And a good swarm, I say a good swarm, an easy to collect swarm is one that's on a branch. It's quite low, so it's easy to to get to. And you can get secateurs, cut off the branch and put it into a box, like a small hive called a nuke, put that in there. But then if it's really high up, like I had one for holly tree, it was like 6 or 7 meters up, just couldn't get up there. You just got to wait for them to move, where they're going to move to. And I've read some research by a beekeeping professor called Thomas Seeley, and he said that honeybees generally will swarm either 10 in the morning or 2 in the afternoon. So if they swarm at 10 in the morning when they go to a branch, if they haven't found anywhere to live yet, they'll move. And then 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that's when they'll move. But if they've swarmed at 2 in the afternoon, they'll stay there till 10 in the morning and then find the next place. But they're quite particular about where they go as well. I think only about something like 60-70% of swarms, they don't survive. Like they've not found somewhere and they're getting tired and hungry and angry and hangry, and they can, that's a swarm there, they can die as well if they don't find somewhere. So this picture here is one I caught at the back of Goodison, Everton's ground, and it was quite a very built up area. It was someone who had bees in his back garden and they'd swarmed, and I was called out. It was this person's house. They were on holiday, they were on a cruise. Actually, it wasn't last year, it was 2 years ago. They were on a cruise, and the neighbour whose bees they swarm from said, you've got to collect them quick. They can't see those bees when they come back from the holidays. You've got to get them quick. So this was quite difficult because you can't cut that branch, that trunk. So it was a case of really just shaking them into the box. But what you want to do with a swarm is you want to try and find the queen, and she's going to be in the middle because they're all protecting her. Try and find the queen, and if you can locate her, either pick her out and put her in your small hive, your nuke, and then the others will follow because they are following her pheromone. She's got queen's pheromone, which is what kind of keeps all the bees calm, and the bees want to be with her.
Amazing. You're wearing a bee suit at this, not a bee costume, but like a beekeeper's.
Oh yeah, bee suit. Yeah. I mean, if it's a new swarm, if they've just newly swarmed on that day or within a few hours, they actually eat a lot of food, a lot of honey, because the honey is carbohydrate. They eat a lot of honey to give them the energy to think, okay, we've got to fly and find our new place to live, because they've eaten a lot of food. It's like if you had a massive meal, you'd be, quite kind of, well, I am like docile, you don't want to bother, no fuss or anything. So they can't really sting. They can't kind of bend their bodies to sting. So I wouldn't say don't wear a bee suit, but, don't worry about if you didn't have a bee suit at hand, or, because I've been around swarms where I've not had any kit. It's just I've had the phone call. It's like, right, get there quickly. I've had to buy a plastic crate and then get the bees in there, put the lid on and then go. So that's a new swarm. So they're not getting angry and hungry, which you can understand, when they're hungry, getting angry, hangry, as I say.
We can all relate to that one, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's definitely maybe a don't try this at home one, but yeah, get the expert in. So
Yeah, just call me.
call Andrea. We'll release her number at the end of this program. I just was going to ask Louis, who's on invisible to everyone, but is arranging everything. Just if you would flick up a couple of the pictures of the greenery growing in pavements, and then just move to the green spaces map, because we'll just talk a bit about biodiversity in city centres and see if that can come up next. So lovely. So Andrea took a couple of pictures along the way of just where you see green in drain pipes. I think there's one of a pavement. Yeah. And I just was going to move us to the green spaces map, which should come up. But just thinking about environments generally, there's lots of informal green we sort of don't often notice or value, and that it's just be really interesting to talk about that. And we've just brought this up because you helped us with this map, which is free to download from Bluecoat, and it shows Liverpool in different eras, where there used to be a public orchard in town, and then kind of what the spaces are now. And sometimes you think of the city as being a lot less green than it was, because there were maybe some more informal shared spaces. But I just was wondering, Andrea, like what's kind of valuable kind of greenery in a city centre for nature?
Well, I mean, when I did this map, I did do a lot more kind of walking around the city centre, and it was during the time of kind of peakish lockdown, was it something like that? I think it was like last September, and so not many people around, and kind of things were left to grow a bit more wildly. And I did actually see mushrooms growing right in the concert square. You just think, how can mushrooms growing? It was crazy. But the value with green spaces, and I'm not talking about parks or big areas of land that's kind of all loads of trees. A green space in these terms anyway, when you're thinking about forage and habitats for city centre wildlife, that could be something like a line of young buddleia, or you've got some herb robert, or these are just all kind of classed as weeds, but classed as weeds to us, or to whoever's wants to get rid of them. But to bees and to birds and lots of other invertebrates as well, it's a lifeline, all of these things. And the more you walk around the city, the more you look, you do see so much green kind of growing in between cracks of pavements, poking out of the side of a building, and they all link together. It does create like a dot to dot of tiny weeds, of map of the city centre, and all of them joined together. It does create this whole network of food for bees, because I know in the city centre that I know there's bees on a building as well. And when I was just in the Bluecoat Garden before, there's a bunch of forget-me-nots. And it was someone actually on Twitter, it was Helen Edwards, who said that if you see forget-me-nots and the kind of circle in the middle is yellow, the bees haven't pollinated that yet. And if it's gone to like a grey-brown colour, it's been pollinated. So it's the flower's way of saying, come and pollinate me, or nothing left here for you. And it's nice to see the ones in the Bluecoat. Every single one have been pollinated.
Wow.
So it's you just think, well, there are pollinators around. So bees, wasps, ladybirds, butterflies. I'm guessing it's going to be bees for this time of year now. So they're coming into the garden and they're making the most of the food available in the Bluecoat Garden.
I know that is happening, because we couldn't be more we're absolutely city centre. In the building. I wonder, Louis, if you could show a couple of Andrew's drone shots of the Bluecoat Garden from above. How far, sounds kind of question, but how far does a bee kind of travel on? Is there an average, like where it would get too tired, or how far it can travel to get food?
Where you've got there's three species of bees that we have in the UK. It's about 200 70 or so, within those types. But solitary bees, as the name suggests, they're solitary. They don't fly very far. I'm not actually sure really, but maybe within a mile of where they live. Bumblebees, they can go a little bit further, and they can fly in cooler temperatures as well. So more than the solitary bees and honeybees. So they're maybe like 2 miles. They don't fly too far, maybe 1.5 miles, 2 miles. In kilometers, I don't know what that is really, but yeah, maybe about 2 and a bit kilometers. But honeybees, they are a workforce. It's like when you put a beehive in one place, it's like putting a factory in place. And to make that factory work, to make those workers in your factory work, you need pollen, nectar, and water. So they could fly up to 5-6 miles away. So if you think 5-6 miles from Blue Coat, if you had bees there, that's going up to, I don't know, where's 5 miles away? Huyton and Bootle maybe. They're gonna. But the further they fly, it kind of gets counterproductive. So you want to have as much pollinator-friendly plants nearby. So they're doing less trips, more trips and less trips. Wherever it's further away, it's obviously going much further out. I always say it's like if I said to you, Marianne, right, you need to go shopping, here's some money, but I want you to go to Tesco's in Formby. You've got to walk. So it's kind of you're walking there, you're getting tired, you think, oh, maybe I'll have this sandwich on the way back. You come back and I'm like, where's the food? Where's the rest of the sandwiches? I had to eat them because it's such a long way away. So it's kind of like that kind of thing. Sorry, picking your leg like that. But it's, so the better forage opportunities there are locally, they don't have to fly too far. I've got bees on a building at the back of TJ Hughes, which is sort of northeast Liverpool, and those colonies they will forage mostly on Islington and Everton Park, because that's the nearest kind of healthy big green space that they've got, and all the little bits in between, like this picture here, that's the back of it on the Tapestry building. Those colonies stay fairly small because the bees kind of live within their means. They know there's not enough pollen. Pollen is like baby food, protein. They feed the young, so there's not much pollen. They kind of say to the queen, don't lay loads of eggs because we haven't got all of that protein, pollen, baby food, so that the colonies stay small. Whereas when I've got them at Nest Gardens, that's rural areas, and they've got all of Nest Gardens plants to play around with. Those colonies are huge all the way the year through. They are huge colonies. So you just kind of got to think about the forage opportunities. If you want bees, if you want honeybees, you want to keep a beehive, have a look at Google Maps and have a look around at what is local to you, because when you've got that factory of workers of bees, you kind of displacing a little bit the needs of the needs of bumblebees and solitary bees forage, and they're the ones that are in decline really, bumblebees and solitary bees, not just because of honeybees, but lots of different reasons why that is. But you do have to kind of consider other bees, not just your honeybees, in terms of forage.
That is going to lead us on some questions actually, and I should say one of the pictures you saw before was Andrea's drone footage of Blue Coat Garden from above in winter, and we're going to do a spring one quite soon because it's really looking really different. But yeah, when she showed us those, we began to understand the city from above, from like a bee eye view. But Rael Marshall is asking exactly that really, about tips and tricks for supporting solitary bees and bee biodiversity in the garden. And Kirsten is also asking about exactly that same thing, but also if you've got a paved back yard, which a lot of people have, what you can kind of do to help. So
if you've got a paved garden, and if there is opportunity to maybe take the odd paving slab out, perhaps, and then kind of fill that square or that space that was there with just some pollinator friendly plants or bulbs. Wildflower seeds are great, are perfect. One thing that I always say to people as well is, if you've got dandelions, leave them, because they're one of the earliest pollinator-friendly plants, along with some trees. So leave those. And another one that is kind of, a sort of easy one to go for are herbs. So bees love herbs because the colour Bees see in ultraviolet light. They don't see the rainbow colours that we see in natural light. They're seeing more of the ultraviolet, so more of the sort of blues and purple end of the spectrum. And if you think about herbs and a lot of wildflowers, they are those colours, because it stands out like if you're shining a torch on a high-vis jacket at night, that's how this blues and purple stands out to bees. So herbs, perfect, like sage, lavender, rosemary. Thyme is a good one as well. They can self-medicate on thyme, but herbs are the kind of one of the best ones. Okay. And then in terms of helping solitary bees, I mean, same sort of thing, just kind of keep planting pollinator-friendly plants. And yeah, this is one, those oasis, like florist oasis things you can get like quite cheaply. This is one I made with some young children on a forest school session, is making, it's like a brick size, and I think there was a hole in the wall where a brick would have gone. Just poking holes in there and then pushing that into the wall, southeast facing wall, but kind of doesn't have to be too close to the ground, but you know, can be on the ground and a little bit higher up. And your solitary bees will, you know, you build it and they will come. They'll go in there, and the females will lay the eggs, and yeah, you've got new bees ready then for that season, or will overwinter for next season.
Amazing. And actually, I had some questions sent in advance by people mentioning dandelions. Katie wanted to know, like, it's her first time with a lawn. Like, again, it's like, it's not often always that people would have a lawn. And she wants to know, like, do you, like she was saying, do you actually get rid of dandelions? But like, how do you treat it? What's the best way to make if mainly what you've got is a little patch of lawn, how do you make that really biodiverse?
Okay, well, it's actually this month, like every month from now in the last few years, it's called No Mow May. And it's just to encourage people, really. I suppose it's a campaign, I think. If you look up hashtag No Mow May, there's loads of things come up. If you are lucky enough to have a lawn, you know, you have a garden even, or an outdoor space, the No Mow May, and to help pollinators, to help nature really, is to keep a strip or a square or whatever kind of, you know, shape you want, unmown. So the rest of it mow for your kind of benefits, so you can sit on the grass, but have an area where you don't can't even say it now, you don't mow in May at all. So let it kind of grow, naturally colonize, and you'd be surprised about what seeds are in the soil, in the ground, that will grow. Because if you think birds are eating seeds off different plants, and when they poo it out, it's kind of, you know, the seed might land into the garden or blown over from somewhere. So it's a nice kind of experiment as well, if you wanted to do that, to let things grow just for that month and identify it. Because for me personally, if I did have a garden with a lawn and everything, I would kind of keep most of it there and just keep an eye on what things are growing and what pollinators, you know, nature, birds, whatever, are coming to visit. Because it just, that simple measure of not mowing can create, you know, so much habitat and forage for lots of different things.
That's really, that will really help, I think. Joanna, just with that in mind, sent a question about, is it best not to deadhead? Because there's certain like conventions of gardening about tidying up and doing things at certain times of year, and also like making it look a certain way. But should you not deadhead plants? Should you leave things to naturally seed? What's your kind of view on that?
I guess it depends on how you'd like to keep your garden as well. It might be that, okay, you might want to keep half of it for, you know, your benefit, so it looks nice to you. So a lot of people don't like to see, you know, dry, dead plants. That kind of makes it look untidy, or for whatever reason they don't like it. And then leave a patch of, I don't know, like your thistles maybe, if they, you know, they've been past their best, they've flowered, self-seeded, you know, leave those all the way through autumn and winter, because that's creating micro, tiny habitats for invertebrates, tiny insects that will go in there, and, you know, they'll hibernate over winter and then come out, or it can provide food as well with the seeds for a lot of birds. Yeah, I think that's what you can do. And if you're thinking about using weed killers and pesticides, I mean, I don't use anything like that because it's, you know, it's a chemical, and you're going to wipe out something. You don't just wipe out one thing like your dandelion. It gets into the soil, and it, you know, sterilizes the soil, and it can kill off lots of things in the ground as well. So if your bees come and get, say, nectar from a dandelion that's been sprayed, then that chemical is going to go into the beehive and pass down to developing bees. So that's just one example of, you know, how it can spread. And even down to worms and birds eating the worms, and that's getting passed down to the young birds, the chicks that are eating it, and the, you know, chemical in their body. So if you, in terms of weeding, I'd always say just hand weed. The more you do it, the more you keep on top of it, the more the weeds are less likely to grow.
Yeah, rather than this sort of try and blast everything out all at once kind of.
Yeah, I mean, I know it's you know, super quick. If you've got a spray, just spray it all like that. But you get a lot of weed killers that are non-selective, which basically means you spray it and it'll just kill anything in its path. Yeah. Some of them are selective, so they'll only kill, like, you know, selective just dandelion, gets to the dandelion, gets to the root and kills it. But a lot of them are non-selective, so just everything gone, that including your soil as well.
And there's quite a few questions that were sent in about wildflowers, because obviously there's been like almost like a new appreciation of them. And one of the things you've done, I know, and you've done them in some of the bee bags for us for schools, is that these amazing wildflower bombs where you can kind of throw a soil, you know, cylinder of seeds and see what happens. But are some of the wildflower meadows that we're seeing that are being kind of created, are they, how are they happening? Because that's become quite a new phenomena, hasn't it? That kind of the wildflower meadow, as opposed to just sort of wildflowers occurring where they occur.
Yeah, when you were thinking about, well, if you want to have a wildflower, you know, patch or meadow or whatever, what you need to do is clear the weeds first, because you can't have your wildflowers competing with the grass, because the grass will just take over. So you need to kind of dig it over, or just weed it all and put some soil down and then sow your wildflower seeds on there. But the other, you know, alternative, which, you know, not my cup of tea really, is to spray it with a herbicide. Let that everything just kind of dies and it becomes sterile. Then a few months later, sow your wildflower seeds on, and, you know, you're guaranteed then you'll have this beautiful display of wildflowers. But by doing that, you are, it's kind of like taking 2 steps back to go 1 step forward, because you've killed stuff, you've killed the plants that are there and the soil, anything living in that soil, just to sow your wildflowers. So the thing with No Mow May is you don't need to kill anything. It's just sensitively manage the garden or green space. And, you know, you could just dig over a bit of soil or dig out some grass and put a wildflower seed bomb in each of those. And, you know, you could have wildflowers amongst your No Mow May patch.
Yeah, well, that's really interesting, just because there's been, a return to wildflowers, but how that process happens isn't always that clear. So that's amazing. If anyone's got any more questions, do drop them in. I have some more that were sent in. But Jennifer Wilkinson is a volunteer at Nest Gardens, which is the beautiful Nest botanical gardens on the Wirral, and she's just asking, do you do demonstrations about caring for beehives, and where would she be able to catch you? Because you have obviously a biodiversity identity online, so just she's wondering how she could see you in action, I think.
All right, I'm assuming this is generally not just at Nest, but if it is just at Nest anyway, I do work with a couple of volunteers already at Nest, and can they get involved? I bring the suits, and, you know, they kind of get stuck in, because I'm regarded as a volunteer as well at Nest, as a resident beekeeper there. But I will be delivering some form of have a go beekeeping kind of thing at Nest Gardens, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But in terms of everywhere else, like in Liverpool, I will be delivering some beekeeping, having a beekeeping or be a beekeeper for the day sessions where you'll put the suit on, health and safety, light smoker, use the hive tool, take the hive apart, look at frames and spot the queen and the workers and the drones. So I will be doing that at some point, maybe June, July time. But yeah, it's definitely at the Formby and Bootle libraries. I'll be definitely doing that there.
Okay. So yeah, so if you're in our region, you can kind of catch you, but also you're on Instagram and Twitter and lots of platforms where people can find you as well. My daughter asked a question, who's done your beekeeping course online. She's 7. She wanted to know, she's at school, so I said I'd ask, what would eat a bee? She's kind of really worried about what would eat a bee and then what would eat a wasp.
Okay, well, with bees, you've got birds will eat bees, and I always worry because when you have a newly emerged virgin queen in a hive, who will then, you know, hopefully take on the role as being the queen of the hive, she'll go and get mated to come back, and she starts laying eggs. And I always think, because a lot of beekeepers say, oh, she might be eaten by a sparrow or something. So I know that yeah, sparrows amongst other birds will eat bees. And the front cover of my MA thesis, which I can send as a PDF link or as a PDF to Bluecoat to share out, or email me if you wanted a copy of it. I did a diagram for the front cover to show what like a typical healthy garden ecosystem. So how everything relies on each other. So with bees, yeah, your birds eat it. Sometimes when I open my beehive, the spiders in there, and they've created a web, and there's like all these cocooned bees in the beehive. But I kind of get rid of those. So I don't spiders are definitely eating bees. Same with wasps as well. I mean, right in the middle actually there, I've got wasp. So things are eating wasps as well as wasps eating other things, and wasps are pollinators. So all of these things that we're might consider a pest, like a wasp. A lot of people say to me, what's the point of them? They are pollinators and they are part of that food chain. And if you took away wasps, you're taking away a food source for birds and spiders, for example. So yeah, bees, I mean, they're all part of the food chain.
Yeah, so everything plays its part, but as humans we tend to select or value other things.
Yeah, it's kind of seem to sort of pick on the wasp, really.
A lot of anti-wasp. That's amazing, Andrea. Thank you so much. I'm just going to ask Louis to pull up a picture of the bee bags that you've helped us, or the bee zine we've been distributing, which might pop up soon. And that was funded by the City Council and worked on with our family programme, and has gone out to the Florey and Home Baked and schools, including Holy Cross. So this is a bee-friendly zine that allows children to understand kind of life cycles, doesn't it, and things, but also comes with seeds and things you can plant on a windowsill, because that's important, isn't it? Small scale planting.
Yeah, I mean, that's my approach really, is to, if more people understand and feel that they're able to do something from their own home, then you've got, you know, more people, you've got a greater number of people doing more things together collectively. And it creates that kind of ecosystem, like, you know, on the picture that we saw, like a garden ecosystem. So the more people are doing it, the more people working together, and the more you're going to provide for pollinators or for nature as well. So the bee zine, sorry, I can't say zine. That's, I mean, it was kind of an idea from Betty, who works at Bluecoat, who came up with that idea. So that was like her idea. I kind of like, you know, just kind of gave her the bits to put in there. But it's educational, it's aimed at young people and children, but also there's lots of adults that have learned a lot from it as well. Because one of the things that I kind of do as well, it's kind of like interpreter mode or something, where I'm taking a lot of data and facts and things, how to help pollinators, and turn it into really simple to follow, easy activities that you can do at home. So opening that up to, you know, giving you opportunities to learn more and more and more with that very subtly. And that's what the zines were about, really. So yeah, they were given out to I think about 200, or was it 100, 200 to All Saints School in Anfield, and then Holy Cross, and then yeah, they were given out all over Liverpool, really.
I think we want to try to keep going with them as well,
Yeah.
And keep them so you can download even if you can't get the bag with the seeds. But they've been amazing, and they work for adults because they really tell you about how these kind of life cycles work. So we're going to let you go and say thank you also to everyone who's watching. So we did this as like a lunch break because everyone needs a lunch break, and especially on a Friday. So we thought this would be good. But we're going to subtitle and release because it's a really useful resource for gardening. And then make sure that we've got more events hopefully happening in person with Andrea in the building. So we're going to keep the relationship going. So thank you very much, Andrea.
Oh, thank you.
And thank you so much everyone for watching. We hope to be open soon as a building, and we will release this as well soon within the month so that you can all watch again if you want to. So thank you and goodbye from all of us.
Thank you, bye.